And welcome to another edition of Oxford News This Week. Oxford News This Week will have Bell Rings with History, a time to reflect, pray, and remember that and more on this edition of Oxford News This Week. Welcome back on Oxford News This Week. Coming up, Wildcat Remembrance Day. That'll be on November 30th. The folks all from the Oxford Resiliency Center is expecting a higher number of visitors seeking support as it's coming up on the one-year anniversary of the Oxford High School shooting. That week, the center will offer free meals for student comfort and support, and including All for Oxford, which opened this past September, and is managed by Common Ground and funded by the state of Michigan through a grant by the Federal Anti-Terrorism and Emergency Assistance Program. The creation of the Oxford agency was guided by the Oxford community for the Oxford community with anyone struggling in the aftermath of the Oxford shooting. Can come to the Center for Help, Community Connection. According to the staff, their grant does not cover meals, so they are not able to pick those up. So they're reaching out to the community for support. If you'd like to help them out, you can email Oxford Area Chamber of Commerce. That will be sent out the last week, stating that they are looking for donations to serve meals all week. They need meals for 40 lunches and dinners on Monday, November 28th, and Tuesday, November 29th, and the 30th. They are looking to serve, again, 40 breakfasts, 60 lunches, and dinners on Friday, December 1st. They hope to serve well over 40 lunches and dinners. The center is also looking for donations of 500 napkins, heavy-duty paper plates, coffee cups with lids, and plastic utensils, forks, spoons, and knives, as well as 300 heavy-duty paper bowls and 200 individual tissue baskets. They need all this so they can serve the food. Staff at the center is also saying they're accepting donations to help cover the cost of thousands of luminaries they'll be handing out. The Wildcats Remembrance Day is, again, going to be held at the center. That center is located 1370 South Lapeer Road, right here in Oxford. If you'd like more information, contact them at 248-653-5511. One of the great things about living in a community such as Oxford is the history that it brings to everyone in the area. There's a piece of history, our past, just waiting to be explored. Uncovered or rediscovered every Sunday at 10 a.m., a piece of local history comes alive at the Oxford United Methodist Church on East Burdick. That's when the 1,400-pound church bell is rung. Cast by E.W. Van Dusen Company at Buckeye Bell Foundry in Cincinnati, Ohio, the bell is one of the few artifacts that was salvaged when the original Methodist church and building had a fire, and an Oxford landmark for 110 years was actually demolished in August of 1978, which was again founded all the way back to 1837 by George Coffin. The Buckeye Bell Foundry was the prolific producer of bells at the time, especially under the ownership of E.W. Van Dusen. According to the article, which was in a recent publication called Just a Little Bell History, that was published in the 1920s, the E.W. Van Dusen Company furnished well over 60,000 bells to churches, schools, and public buildings. The E.W. Van Dusen Company is responsible for the largest swinging bell ever cast in the United States. That bell, called Big Joe, that massive bell hangs in the tower at St. Francis de Sales Catholic Church in Cincinnati. Ohio cast on October 30th, 1895. Big Joe by itself, it weighs 27,390 pounds, with the mountings on the bell weighing a whopping 35,000 pounds. Although the E.W. Van Dusen Company Buckeye Bell Foundry closed its doors in the early 50s, one of the creations still fulfilling its purpose every Sunday happens here in Oxford at that church. Throughout the years, a number of Addison Township residents have given their time and labor and efforts to make the park system a gem. 2 weeks ago, 7 of the volunteer rangers were out on Leonard Road working on the erosion control and general cleanup near the recently completed pier at Lake George Nature Park. The Lake George Nature Park was acquired by Addison Township in 2015 with the support of the Six Rivers Land Conservancy through the grant from the Michigan DNR. Gas and oil lease programs. Once the site verification process was completed and the Trask family agreed to sell the property, the Rangers' 5-year effort was achieved. Blazek said operating costs for the parks are paid by the lease and an agreement for the property by a cell tower that sits on Lake George Nature Park. And it is 82 acres located in the Little West part of Leonard Village at 730 West Leonard Road. It was acquired in 2011. When complete, it will have a picnic area, trail system, a dock for fishing. This undeveloped park is open now, and if you're interested in the woods, rustic trails, and fishing, if any resident would like to become a park ranger, attend their monthly meetings the first of the month, 7:30 in the evening at the Arnold School, 5757 Rochester Road, if you're interested in that. Seymour Lake Park may be gaining more funding for an additional safety path along the south side of Seymour Lake Road. On the monthly meeting, the Oxford Township Board of Trustees Communications Grants Manager C.J. Carnacchio proposed an approval of an allocation of $60,600 from the township's general fund balance, contingent on receiving $50,000 design grant from the Community Foundation of Southeast Michigan for the purpose of expanding the safety path.
I am currently working on a $50,000 design and access grant for the Community Foundation for Southeast Michigan Ralph Wilson Jr. Legacy Funds. If awarded, this grant will be used to fund the design work for a safety path along the south side of Seymour Lake Road between Sanders and Seymour Lake Park. Currently, the design work for the path that we want to construct between Dunlap and Sanders Road is nearly complete, so this would complete the rest of the design work in order to make this a shovel-ready project. If you know this safety path is ranked number 2 on the priorities list on the safety path master plan. A lot of people want this built. A lot of people want to be able to get to the park. And if we can make this a shovel-ready project by getting the design work done and eventually find funds for building the path, it would link people to the park, to the Pollyant Trail, and to downtown Oxford. You'd be able to go from downtown Oxford to Seymour Lake Park and back. So I'm asking you guys to approve tonight $60,600 from the general fund's fund balance to commit to the design work if contingent on us receiving this $50,000 grant.
Mr. Carnacchio also noted that the path is slowly needed because there is no safe way for non-motorized travelers to access Seymour Lake Park. To reach the park, pedestrians, cyclists, and mobility device users must travel along the side of the road in the roadway where traffic is speed and the volume in Seymour Lake make this very dangerous and a difficult proposition. The board unanimously agreed to allocate the funds for expanding the safety path project. At the same meeting, and a request of the Oxford residents, a noxious weeds ordinance was also discussed by the board, specifically so what it should be done on the books or have on the books. Trustee Payne commented that she felt it was time to adopt an ordinance similar to what the village has in Oxford and Lake Orion.
So we have a copy of the ordinance that was drafted, I think, back in 2012 here. I've looked at it, you know, obviously without having it looked at by the attorneys, but I know it had been previously, and I think this would cover what we're looking for noxious weeds. I think the time has come. I think we have more subdivisions now, and I think it's an appropriate move for our township. The surrounding townships have something in place.
Trustee Charles agreed with exploring the village, Oxford's noxious weed ordinance, and also questioned how the ordinance would be enforced.
Yeah, I tend to agree with what you're saying, that we need something on the books. You put on a previous ordinance that was considered in, what, 2012, I believe? Mm-hmm. Is anyone aware what the Village of Oxford has? I know they have one. I don't know what it says.
Back in 2012, we looked at all of that.
Yeah.
We looked at the villages, we looked at Orions, we looked at several different townships. And that was the ordinance that we have here in front of us is kind of a conglomeration of all of those. This was all studied back in 2012.
Okay. Another comment then, if I may?
Here, Trustee Charles.
At the end of the day, however it's written up, I think the other aspect in all these things is the enforcement aspect that comes up too.
Right.
You know, so if we have something out there about noxious weeds and somebody says, how do we enforce it? What are the standards we use? I'm not saying I have a solution, or I'm not asking for a solution, but I just know that's going to be lurking out there, that enforcement issue. Okay? So we got to consider that when we come up with what we do.
Treasurer Ferrari asked Attorney Ellis if the noxious weed ordinance should be applied to rural farm areas and how it would compare to the framework that has already been suggested in the township.
Who would the noxious weed ordinance under the building code apply to?
Under the building code, I believe it applies to any property in your township. Once you hit that inches mark, you can enforce it.
Even if you have 20 acres?
I believe that's the case. I can look into that further.
Well, see, that's the issue. Some of our farms, we want to be going out to 300-acre farms and say, sorry, grass is too high.
I will say most of it's generally complaint based, so usually it's not really, your code enforcement generally isn't going out and enforcing it unless there's a complaint, which more likely happens in, more congested areas, not your rural zoning districts. However, we can ensure that this ordinance, if that's your intent, is not regulating those large lots.
With so many remaining questions on the board, also agreed to form a 3-person subcommittee, which will be meeting throughout November and will report back to the board in their December meeting. I'd like to thank the Boy Scouts of America Troop 366 as they launched their effort, as they have done for years, to raise funds for Wreaths Across America, WAA for short, again this year. The troop is seeking help to raise money to place wreaths on the veterans' graves on Ridgelawn Memorial Cemetery during the month of December. According to Ridgelawn owner caretaker Chris Atchison, there are over 200 veterans buried in the cemetery. This year's theme, Find a Way to Serve. According to the King, movement encourages youth to get involved in their own communities, to serve in small ways and make a big impact. King said the troop 366 has been part of this program since when it was incepted in 2008. A $15 sponsorship will pay for one wreath made of live greenery, and it can be placed on a veteran's grave. King also noted people can use a 3-for-2 sponsorship wreath. Wreaths Across America will donate one wreath for every 2 which are sponsored. Local sponsorships can also be made visiting the Boy Scout America Troop, BSA Troop 366 Wreaths Across America website, wreathsacrossamerica.org/m. And then clicking on the donate button, or you may send a check made payable to Troop 366, BSA Troop 366, care of Lake Point Church, 1550 West Drainer Road, right here in Oxford. Attention, Matt King, of course, he's the leader, 48371. Again, all the donations are definitely appreciated and welcomed, and it does look nice over the holidays to say you're paying commemoration for the veterans out there at the cemetery. Last Friday afternoon, in the parking lot was full, as were the seats at the American Legion Walter Fraser Post, 108 on East Drainer Road. It was no wonder against the Post hosted its annual Veterans Day Luncheon. That was a few weeks back. Veterans from every branch of the United States Armed Services were there, packed as World War II were even on hand to free lunch and beverages. Once again, we'd like to thank them for their service and also thank the Legion for putting on that dinner as they do every year. You can chalk this one up under you don't see it very often. A baby owl in the middle of the road, according to Krista Brady of North Baldwin Road in Oxford Township. She was on her way to drop her children off to school that last Thursday, and husband Ryan and the Brady's neighbor Tara Gonzalez rescued the owl and waited for Krista to return. Krista turned to Facebook for help in finding someplace to take the eastern screech owl, born, which is listed here in Michigan in the DNR's website as a licensed rehabilitator. Her organization is called Spirit-Filled Wings, and they only rehab raptors, eagles, owls, hawks, and falcons, and the website also is allaboutbirds.org. Eastern screech owls is some fun facts about the eastern screech owl. Again, the one that was rescued here in Oxford. Eastern screech owl pairs usually are monogamous, remain together for life. Some males, however, will mate with 2 different females. The second female may evict the first female, lay her own eggs, and then nest on both eggs as they incubate. The oldest recorded eastern screech owl in the wild was at least 14 years, 6 months old when it was found in Ontario in 1968, the same province where it had been banned in 1955. Like most raptors, male eastern screech owls are smaller than females and are more agile than hunters and flyers and hunters. The female doesn't hunt while on the nest. She and the chicks depend on the food brought to them by the male. Though the male is smaller, his voice is deeper than the females. The eastern screech owl grows to about 6 to 10 inches in length with a wingspan between 18 and 24 inches. Kind of a unique find on the middle of the street here in Oxford Township. Oxford Township Treasurer Joe Ferrari presented a motion to the board which would levy 0 mills for North Oakland Transportation Authority on the winter 2022 tax bill. Because of the Oakland County-wide transit millage passed at the rate of 0.95, the board unanimously passed the motion prior to the Oakland County millage. Township residents were paying 0.2314 mills for the notice services. Also, Oxford Township trustee John Nold informed the board that the mobile food establishment ordinance would be in existence, that has been in existence since 2021, needs to be revisited to make more streamlined revisions to make it easier to apply for permits. The board will have it on their December 14th agenda to deal with at that time. With that, Dave Kenny will have a few segments, Auto Talk and Science in the News. I'll have a brief look at sports, and we'll close out another edition of Oxford News this week. Thank you for watching.
Welcome to this edition of Auto Talk. I'm Dave Kenny, and this story is taken from Automotive News. Front-to-rear crashes were slashed by about half when the striking vehicle was equipped with forward collision warning and automatic emergency braking, according to a study from a partnership between the U.S. Department of Transportation and several automakers. The Partnership for Analytics Research in Traffic Safety has released the results of what it called the largest government automaker study to date, exploring the real-world effectiveness of advanced driver assistance systems in passenger vehicles. The group, formed in 2018, is a voluntary partnership between the Transportation Department and automakers such as General Motors, Honda, Mazda, Nissan, Stellantis, and Toyota. Ford Motor Company has also joined the partnership, and its vehicles will be incorporated into future studies, the group noted. Tesla, whose autopilot driver assist system is under federal investigation, is not part of the group. The study, conducted by MITRE Corporation, a nonprofit that operates the partnership as an independent third party, comes as automakers add more advanced driver assistance features to their vehicles and as NHTSA collects data on crashes linked to those technologies. These emerging technologies can substantially reduce the number of crashes and improve safety outcomes, says Tim Zapp, industry co-chair of the partnership's governance board and a senior manager at Stellantis. Demonstrating industry's proactive commitment, automatic emergency braking is approaching standard deployment, and the real-world effectiveness is helping mitigate injuries and lives lost, he says. In addition to forward collision warning and automatic emergency braking, including those systems with pedestrian detection, the group assessed lane departure warning, lane keeping assistance, and lane centering assistance. The study relied on vehicle equipment data provided by participating automakers for 47 million light truck vehicles, or light-duty vehicles that is, from the 2015 to 2020 model years, and data provided by NHTSA from 12 million police-reported crashes across 13 states. Overall, the study found that driver assist features such as forward collision warning and automatic emergency braking provide substantial safety benefits across a wide variety of situations, while others such as lane departure warning and lane keeping assistance provide some benefit. Features such as automatic emergency braking with pedestrian detection require more data to make estimates of effectiveness according to the findings. Still, front-to-rear crashes resulting in injury were reduced by 53% for vehicles with both forward collision warning and automatic emergency braking equipped. Front-to-rear crashes considered serious were reduced by 42% in vehicles with two technologies, the analysis shows. When vehicles are equipped with just forward collision warning, the estimated reduction for all front-to-rear crashes is 16% and 19% for front-to-rear crashes resulting in injury. The study also demonstrated that automatic emergency braking performs extremely well in all conditions, even when roadway, weather, and lighting conditions are not ideal. A study from AAA in September that crash tested 4 different makes and models with the feature found plenty of room for improvement, however. Another study released in August by the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety that tested vehicles' ability to detect pedestrians at night found automatic braking systems perform poorly in that situation. Jennifer Morrison, Mazda's manager of vehicle safety and compliance, planning and development, said in a statement that the latest study is a starting point for much to be learned from this kind of data sharing effort in automotive safety. Forward collision warning and automatic emergency braking are standard equipment on all U.S. Mazda vehicles, she noted. A crucial part of the safe system approach is making vehicles safer by leveraging innovation to prevent crashes and save lives on our nation's roads, Ann Carlson, NHTSA's acting administrator, said in a statement. She goes on to say public-private partnerships are yet another tool to help accelerate the development and adoption of life-saving technology to protect all road users. Good stuff. Well, that's it for this edition of Auto Talk. I'm Dave Kenny. Stay tuned to Oxford Community Television.
Welcome back to Oxford News This Week. Time for some sports. We have a brief look at sports here. We'll be covering winter sports as they come. About 120 runners participated in the 33rd annual Turkey Trot 5K 2K walk this past week at Seymour Lake Township Park. The event was sponsored by Meijer, which provided frozen turkeys to all category winners, from elementary to 70-year-olds. The first overall winner, Lake Orion High School sophomore Raymond Lucero, who completed the 5-kilometer run at the time of 17 minutes and 45 seconds. The next runner was Alex Polak. He was a male runner from the 30 to 39 category with a time of 17:54. In the 70-plus age group, Mary Ann Baxter finished first in her group with a time of 36 minutes and 28 seconds. Once again, a fun had by all, and they got some turkeys to take home for Turkey Day. Independence Township, the Wildcats closed out the fall season in the past week in volleyball. The MHSAA Volleyball Division I District 3 semifinal, losing to Clarkston on November 2nd, 3-0. Oxford opened the first set with the first point from the senior Rachel Townsend. The Wolves tied it up, taking on the next 2 points to take the lead. The momentum continued for Clarkston as they distanced themselves from the board. The Wolves took the first set at 25-14 when Clarkston did end up with a set at 25-19. The Wildcats opened the final season of the 4 points from Townsend. Clarkston caught up and 2 more neck and neck in the score until the Wolves went back on a 5-point run, taking the lead and holding on to it until the 25-18 when Townsend had 11 digs, 8 kills, and 3 blocks that night. Senior Jada Whittle had 6 kills. Senior Ashley Horn had 6 digs, and senior Carly Turek had 5 digs. Freshman Tara Swanson tallied 7 assists, and senior Haley Darren had 6 assists. Oxford had a bye for the round, the other first round of the districts. They finished the season off 26, 22, and 3. That wraps it in sports. I'll be back at the end of the newscast. We'll say goodbye. You're watching Oxford News This Week.
Welcome to Science in the News. I'm Dave Kenny, and this story is taken from New Scientist. Honeybees kept under laboratory conditions in the U.S. only live about half as long as they did in the 1970s, suggesting that genetics could be contributing to colony losses and not just environmental factors such as pesticides and sources of food. 5 decades ago, the median lifespan for a worker western honeybee that spent its adult life in controlled environment was 34.3 days. Now, the median is 17.7 days, according to research by Anthony Neerman and Dennis Van Engelsdorp at the University of Maryland. The work began as an experiment looking at the effects of feeding plain water to lab-kept bees as a supplement on top of their normal diet of sugar water. But through examining the scientific literature on similar studies over time, Neerman observed a downward trend in lifespan from the 1970s to now, which was reflected by the lifespan of the team's caged bees. Paradoxically, mortality rates were found to have doubled since protocols for lab-rearing honeybees were formalized in the 2000s. The change implies that solutions to the reduced life of colonies in the field, a problem increasingly encountered by beekeepers, may be found in the bees themselves. For the most part, honeybees are livestock, so beekeepers and breeders often selectively breed from colonies with desirable traits like disease resistance, says Neerman. In this case, it may be possible that selecting for the outcome of disease resistance was an inadvertent selection for reduced lifespan among individual bees, he says. Shorter-lived bees would reduce the probability of spreading disease, so colonies with shorter-lived bees would appear healthier. Despite the risk of trade-offs, the findings raise the possibility that if genetic factors, including influencing, that is, lifespan, could be isolated, longer-lived bees could be specially bred. Experimental honeybees are collected from hives as pupae within 24 hours of emerging from their wax cells, meaning that early exposure to pathogens or pesticides as larvae can't be ruled out as a factor. However, the bees used in the current study showed no overt systems of such exposure, says Neerman. Researchers started to document increasing rates of colony loss around 2006 after a phenomenon known as colony collapse disorder started killing huge amounts of colonies in the U.S. The disorder trailed off around 2008, but colony loss rates have remained higher than what beekeepers deem economically viable, and the reasons why are uncertain. The team's modeling work demonstrated that a 50% reduction in individual bee lifespan would result in an annual colony loss rate of 33%, a figure that fits well with overwinter and annual loss rates of 30 and 40% that have been reported by beekeepers. Further research will look at lifespan trends across different parts of the U.S. and around the world in an attempt to compare the relative impact of genetic and environmental factors. This creative study highlights the importance of worker honeybee longevity in determining the overall health of a honeybee colony, says Gene Robinson at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. And the research goes on. Well, that's it for this edition of Science in the News. I'm Dave Kenny.
Back with you in Oxford News this week. Before we say goodnight tonight, dates mark history. December 7th, Pearl Harbor. September 11th, the attack on the Trade Center in New York City. November 30th will ever be etched in Oxford's history. Dates that seem to cause great emotion and sorrow. It's been less than a year and Oxford approaches an anniversary it most likely never thought it could happen. 4 young souls snatched away in the moments, 11 families whose lives were changed forever. Things have happened over the past year that have tried to heal the community and inspire and heal those that touched by that violent act of less than a year ago. We have seen things on the athletic field with support from our other schools, an angel's voice bringing together a community on the national platform, a coach in Detroit that struggles for a win weekly, donating the first game-winning ball in dedication to hope those here in hopes of healing, and a testament of a father who drives to the football field every day in order to preserve his son's memory, number 42, to help his teammates. Maybe it was a mural that was painted on a school wall in Clarkston for one of their former students who was taken that day as well. These gestures have touched the hearts of our community. These gestures maybe help ease the sorrow. We will never take the pain away from that day a year ago. This next week will be a challenge as we get closer to the 30th. There have been some programs that day to help. Here at OCTV, we try on a weekly basis to highlight the positive of our community and to offer ways of support. For those here at Oxford Community Television, we say a prayer and we let you know that we're here and that's our gesture. To help the healing and help your efforts that are hopefully noticed. May your faith guide you over the next few weeks. May you reach out for support if needed. OCTV can be viewed on Spectrum Charter, Channel 191, Channel 99 on the AT&T Uverse system, and YouTube, Rumble, and Facebook. Folks can even download Roku and watch OCTV programming there. It's also available to local groups for producing public service announcements. If you have a show idea and want to volunteer, feel free to contact our office at 248-628-9658. We would like to thank producer director Kyle Snage, videographer Al Campbell, editor Kyle Snage, program coordinator Dan Zweiss, program director Connie Miller, station manager Terry Stiles. For everyone here at OCTV, I'm Jim Hughes, hoping you have a safe week, and I invite you back next week at Oxford News This Week.